Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is for episode 6 of the epic rescue of the Search and Rescue John boat. Today, we are going to be trying to frame, I don't even know what to call it, the decking. Give ourselves our storage compartments and our hatches and our platform that we're going to walk along. And I have almost no idea where to start. I think Lewis Carroll said,
"Start at the beginning."
Yeah. And when you come to the end, stop.
let's just figure it out. The plan is to have a shear wall that comes up this way with a flap on top of it that flips down so that all of this is kind of mashed off, but also underneath that flap stays unfinished. From here to about here is going to be something analogous to a bench, right? But it's going to be a U-shaped deck. It's going to come back in this direction, or maybe even better to say like a donut-shaped deck, right? Like it's going to carry in this direction. There's going to be a large casting deck that sits up there. It's going to carry back in this direction. And there's going to be a recess portion where the subfloor is exposed, where your feet go while the boat is in transit. Port side of the boat, we're going to have 3 dry storage compartments. Each of those is going to have its own hatch. On this side of the boat, we are going to have a rod locker that will be able to accommodate up to 7-foot 6-inch rods. Now, one of the issues that exists for sure on this boat is that it is like way light in the nose. So from the beginning, I wanted to make sure that I had something to put weight as far forward as possible. The way we're going to do that is by having our fuel tank sitting up in the front of the boat, as well as not just 1, but 2 batteries. One battery will be exclusively to start the motor. The other battery will be for all of the onboard accessories and lighting and all that other good stuff. Before we go anywhere else, we need to recognize that this is a 3-dimensional object. It's a 3-dimensional object with straight lines and curves and angles and all of this other good stuff, and that can make it very, very difficult to establish uniform planes. My prime objective is to make sure that the donut layer, right, is high enough to exceed the height of that fuel tank. I think the best thing to do is to bust out a 360-degree laser level. I think we've got our line. So I'm not sure how visible this is going to be. That laser line comes right up to this lip. There's plenty of clearance so that we can build over where this fuel tank will sit. Our line is marked all the way along the hull. We are officially into the phase of the build that I was worried about from the beginning.
Trypophobia, a fear of
holes. And for this portion of the build, I did have to go out and secure more angled aluminum. After having done the framing with that 1/8 inch thick angle, there's no way that stuff is getting cut with a pair of snips. Cuts are exactly what I'm going to need to do. So I picked this up. This will be reflected in the overall cost sheet at the end of today's build. But it's among the very few things that I did have to purchase to make this work. I think what I'm going to do here is just set my line. So this is where we have to start making strategic cuts. I think that is about where we want to be. All right, we've reached a stage of this build process where we can really make things more difficult for ourselves than they need to be by not paying attention to what we're doing. Now we have to start putting stuff together, thinking about how we're going to have nailers for putting in the solid panels, where we want to have walls, all of that other good stuff. And it's really important that, you know, those pieces and parts get arranged in such a way that they create flush surfaces for us. I'm going to spend some time thinking about this and figure out what the best way to go might be.
Strategery.
Okay, so the trick definitely looks like it's going to be not tacking anything down until everything is fit. All right, this first crossbeam is in and it is solid. Like I would be comfortable standing on this all by itself. We're all flushed up. Now we got to decide exactly how deep we want this to be. I feel like this needs to be somewhere in the ballpark of 16 inches. 18? Let's go 18 from this rail. 18 gives you a pretty substantial area to stand too. So, yeah, 18. I don't know. Does that look right to you? This wide? Is that big enough for an ass? I don't know. Looks like it's big enough for my ass. Beautiful. So, like, I just decided how big the back casting deck was going to be on a whim based on what looked right. That's nuts. Now we have to decide how big we want the footwell for the cockpit. I don't want to waste too much space. You're gonna have to stare at it for a second. That's just all you can do.
One eternity later.
I think this is the time where I start placing stuff and thinking about what the layout has to be. And I know I want the fuel and the battery to be as far forward as possible because I know I want all of that weight to have all of that leverage on the front of the boat. So I guess the thing here is, how big do I want my casting deck to be? So the smart thing to do is going to be to cut another piece to run across here that we can slide back and forth to give us a visual and figure out what we're comfortable with. That sounds smart. It might not be. I don't know. That's remarkable. That's right at 6 feet of casting deck right there. So that's where I want that to be. I'm seriously thinking about how I'm taking my measurements here. Like, one of the reasons it was so important to get that back plane exactly right, plumb, flush, square, is because all of my measurements are going to come from that back wall so that I can make sure that things stay relatively square as we work our way forward. So I've marked off where I want this to be. It turns out that where this is going to sit is almost exactly 6 feet to the front of the boat. That's plenty of casting deck, at least for me. Now that I've got that measured, marked, I need to figure out what that measurement is. I need to replicate it on the other side. And then I need to cut this bar so that my fascia side points inward. Man, there's a lot to think about. This is such a challenge. I'm loving it. This is a good time. Whatever we build here needs to be symmetrical. However wide I make that to accommodate for the storage bins has to be equally wide on this side. And then I look at what's left in the middle, and that tells me how much space I've got for my feet. I think I want to go 20. 20, that leaves 13 inches. No, I don't want to do that either. 18 feels like it's the magic number. 18. Well, we're very much coming up on the end of the day here, but I got the main thing that I wanted to get done, which was this inner portion of the cockpit. And you can see what I was going for, which was having headers for me to be able to rivet plywood material to once everything is in. So every panel, it's got something on all four corners to attach to. Now that I'm looking at the way that all of this stuff shapes up, I'm thinking I can't just let that space go to waste. Like, my plan was to have those 3 bins running here. As a matter of fact, let me go get those. There you go. Now you can see that, but you know, that's 3 containers for dry storage, right? But then you look at all of this back here. I need to spend some time thinking about this. Gotta spend some time thinking about this. Well, good morning. It's a new day. I'm not any better looking. Sorry. We got the general framing though done for the back of the boat, and I've used a lot of material. A lot of my angle is gone. I've probably got 2 16-foot sticks, another 10 feet. I don't know what. So that's 32, 42. I've got maybe 50 or 60 feet left. I'd hate to have to buy more. So we're gonna see what we can do here. But at this point, right, like, so we've got our general shape set up here. And I've spent some time thinking about it, and I think I know what I want to do, right? Okay. Today's goal is to figure out the general layout for what's gonna happen here. Like, this is gonna be the start of a casting deck that runs all the way up to the front. It's become clear that I'm not going to be able to get my hands on a hatch big enough for the fuel tank, so I'm going to have to do like the standard wood deck piano hinge up down thing just for that. But we need to figure out how to frame this out to accommodate that fuel tank and hatch, and also the 2 battery boxes that are going to go up in the front. And it seems to me like it's a good idea to go ahead and permanently place the stuff that's going to hold those items. Does that make sense? Like, it seems like that makes sense to me. Place the items, have a very clear idea of where the framing needs to go, and then build around them, right? Yeah? Okay, let's do that. So for better or for worse, this is where this stuff is gonna live now. It's a little bit wider than the footwell, and I've tried to arrange this in such a way that it's accessible conveniently from the same side, like when I pull my car up to get gas. I don't know if that's gonna matter at all. But now that we know where these things are, we can take care of the rest. Good morning. The thing I like about being this far into something is that you know exactly where to start. You get up, you walk out to the garage, you're like, oh, the right thing to do is support these long runs. There's a lot of bow in this. I'm not following any particular rhyme or reason when it comes to the distance. I'm just trying to like make sure that I don't have a run of more than about a foot without some kind of a support. Nice thing about it is, since I'm using 1/8 inch instead of 1/16, I can go for longer runs without having to have supports in place. At least that's what it seems like to me. I don't know. Not bad. Okay, so for the cross supports, right? The way that we're gonna do this is we are going to take our angle. Here's a scrap piece. We're gonna slap it on like this. We're gonna rivet it from the top and from the side, and have our tabs cut. So when we go to put this in, then these will establish our plane, and they will give us that stability side to side. And then down the road, when we're ready, we can come in with the 2-part foam, and it'll fill in underneath, it'll fill in on the sides, it'll make this nice and solid, and we'll have dry storage. Now at this point, like, you don't have to be crazy specific with your framing because, you know, as far as aesthetics are concerned, the thing that's really going to be important eventually is that once this thing is decked, you're going to want to make sure that your hatches are all squared up and in line and all that other good stuff. But the hatches they're just doors, right? Like this could be cattywampus, it could be crooked, it could be kind of off an inch or two one way or the other, depending on how big your hatches are. But generally speaking, we can have a little bit of slop in what we're doing right now. Then square it up to where it needs to be, and we'll mark our tab. Now we can drill holes here in these flat surfaces for rivets to go through, and we can do the same on the sides. Got our center marker. That's looking pretty good. Pretty
good.
So there you have it. That first box is in. And there is some clearance underneath, but the idea is that that will get filled in with foam eventually. And that will be a rock solid little dry storage area. One, two, three. I'm confident these are going to hold up when this gets decked off. You got these smaller hatches. They're going to go right like that. Put a couple rivets in there. Good to go. There you go. Now in these corners we can seal all that stuff up before we actually do the foam inside of this component. And that'll stop it from expanding into places we don't want it to be. At least the bulk of it anyway. The plan is to put in conduit on that side. Come to think of it, I probably could do it on this side too. I've got enough space for it. I may do that. Matter of fact, I think I am going to do that. I have to cut a hole in this board. The reason I have to cut a hole in this board is that I'm going to take a 10-foot length of PVC, right? Just 2-inch diameter, right? And I'm going to feed that through, right? Behind these boxes, between these boxes and the wall. And it's going to run from this back wall right here, right? It's going to come out into this open channel. And it's also going to go out up there. This is going to be the tube that allows for me to have free pass-through for anything I want to put in it. The thing I'm intending to put in it is my fuel line. Remember, we put the fuel tank in the front of the boat. That fuel is going to get from the front to the back somehow. And I like the idea of being able to just feed it through conduit, not have to worry about pulling anything up or foam or anything like that. I'll show you the product at the end of this because I'm going to have to open the garage door and pull the boat out and do a whole bunch of stuff here to create room to feed it. So, well, you can probably tell by the lighting, time got away from me. And, well, I'm out of angle aluminum and I'm almost out of rivets. But the good news is the aluminum structure is basically done, which is super cool. I still got some, cleanup work to do with paneling and things like that, like some compartments that I need to seal off. And I definitely need to get in and get all that stuff ready for the next phase, which is electrical. I'm just gonna do what I've been doing and take it 1 minute at a time, try to think a couple steps ahead, and see if I can get this thing to be as clean as possible. Let me show you where we're sitting. It probably makes sense to start at the front here. So we are all shored up for when this eventually gets decked. This is going to be an unfinished storage compartment. The work that is left to do here, you can see we have this panel. The vision is that fuel and electrical for the motor are going to come up through here, exit through a panel that's going to exist right here, come back around, and they get fed through this conduit, which runs all the way to the back. Conversely, there's another conduit right down there for accessory power, and that's going to do all the things like lights and fish finder, all of that good stuff. This whole component here, or this whole compartment here, is going to be completely walled off. Everywhere that there's going to be a hatch, there's also going to be an internal light, so that from the panel back there I can flip a switch and turn on all of the storage compartments to be able to see what I'm doing. This hatch right here, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do. I may go ahead and order another DPI like the one that I've got over there. I know for sure though that the hatch for the fuel tank, it's going to have to be wooden. I don't want to spend the money that it would take to get something big enough to be able to handle that gas tank. But here we have also the rod storage. I chose to leave that open-ended. I only went with 3 rods in this configuration. Now I've created this channel for the conduit because I didn't want to see it, right? So this is a nice walled off compartment for rod locker. All the hatches, with the exception of fuel, are going to be like this DPI hatch. And I've already positioned this so that I know that I can get all of my rods in and out of there without any problems and have additional storage to spare. I did what I could to shore this up with a little bit extra strength, knowing this is going to be where I sit while the boat is underway. This area is vacant right now, and this is where the conduit for the primary electrical comes out, because my intention is for my switch panel to be located right there. I will probably have another hatch here. This will stay unfinished so that I can easily get to the back of that panel to do any electrical work that I need to do. And as has always been the plan, this area stays unfinished. Now, all the areas where you see paneling are going to get painted with truck liner paint. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. In the meantime, like I said, we are now framed, and you have a very good sense of what this boat is going to be like. I think it does it for this episode. I can't even keep track of like where we are right now. Anyway, I'm exhausted. I've been at this for pretty much my entire weekend. And while I'm very, very proud, I'm also very, very tired, and I have a big mess to clean up. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next one.